Hello, and welcome to this comprehensive guide to passing the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. So this is for the CLF-C02 exam. If you're looking to pass this exam in your first attempt, you've come to the right place. So in this workshop, I'll be walking you through everything you need to know to crack that exam with confidence. And some of the things we're going to cover in this video will be the core AWS concepts you must know for the exam, the AWS Well-Architected Framework and how to apply it to the exam, the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework and why it matters, proven exam hacks that aren't widely known but guarantee success, a real AWS exam question breakdown to show you how to think like an AWS Cloud Practitioner. So let's jump right in. So just giving you a slight overview of the exam is that you have 90 minutes to complete the exam. So from the moment your exam is started by the invigilator, you have 90 minutes to complete the entirety of the exam. You have 65 questions, which are made up of multiple choice or multiple response questions. And you can do the test in person or online using the Pearson VUE testing facilities. And the result is a simple pass or fail. And the AWS Cloud Practitioner certification is valid for 3 years. So here's a brief agenda of the various topics we're going to be covering in this session. The section 1 will be focusing on the AWS core concepts. Section 2 will be looking at the well-architected framework. Section 3 will be looking at AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. And then we have our bonus content of exam tips and an exam question explained. So I guess to start with, what is AWS? AWS stands for Amazon Web Services and is a world leader in the cloud computing space. It offers over 200 services across compute, storage, networking, databases, and security. Understanding the fundamentals of AWS and Amazon Web Services is crucial to passing the CLF-C02 exam. So let's break it down. The AWS global infrastructure operates globally in regions, availability zones, and edge locations. Regions are physical locations around the world, each containing multiple data centers. Availability zones are isolated locations within a region, which ensure redundancy in the event of any disaster. Edge locations are part of AWS's content delivery network. So, for example, Amazon CloudFront is an example of a service that uses edge locations to serve content with low latency. A key exam tip is AWS always designs for fault tolerance and high availability using these infrastructure components. So here are the 4 key AWS service areas you must know going into the exam. So the first is compute. Compute is a computational layer that exists within AWS. So some services that might use the compute or fall into the compute service area is Amazon EC2 for virtual machines or AWS Lambda for serverless computing. Next, we have storage. So this is essentially where your objects or your data is stored within the cloud. And some common services that you might know for this is Amazon S3 for object storage and Amazon EBS for block storage. Next up, we have networking. So for networking, you have Amazon VPC, which we use to define network configurations, and is also the long form is the virtual private cloud, where you also house your subnets and different configurations and gateways you might use to provide networking services to your cloud infrastructure. And next up, we have security. So that's AWS Identity and Access Management, or IAM for short, which you might use for your identity and managing permissions for various services within the cloud. Next, we have AWS Shield, which is also going to be used for DDoS protection and also falls under the security service pillar. Knowing how these services fit together is crucial for passing your exam. So next up, we have the AWS Well-Architected Framework. The AWS Well-Architected Framework is used to design reliable, secure, and efficient applications in the cloud. It consists of 5 key pillars, the first one of which is operational excellence. So this looks at how we can automate and monitor systems to ensure operational excellence within the cloud. The next we have security. So how can we protect data, use IAM policies, and enable encryption to ensure our information is secure and safe within the cloud environment. Next up, we have reliability. How can we plan for failures and use multi-availability zone deployments or multi-region deployments to ensure that our cloud infrastructure is reliable in the event of any disasters? Next up, we have performance efficiency. How can we choose the right resources to optimize performance for our services and our workloads in the cloud? Next up, we have cost optimization. How can we avoid over-provisioning and use reserve instances and savings plans to ensure we're getting the best value for money within our cloud ecosystem? For the exam, you should expect scenario-based questions that test your knowledge on all of these pillars. So it's best to prepare ahead of time and ensure you understand what each of these pillars includes. Next up, we have the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. This provides best practices for organizations who are interested in moving to AWS cloud environment, and it consists of 6 key perspectives. The first of which is business perspective. So how can we align our cloud strategy with our overall business goals? Then we have the people perspective. How can we train teams ready for cloud adoption? So this might mean involving development teams or spinning up a DevOps function in order to make sure that your business is ready to tackle cloud and cloud technologies. Next up, we have the governance perspective. So this looks at how we can establish best practices for compliance within the cloud. Then we have the platform perspective. How can we optimize our infrastructure on AWS? Then we have a security perspective. How can we protect our cloud workloads? And then we have the operations perspective, which is how can we maintain reliability and performance within the cloud? So within the exam, you'll be tested on understanding how organizations can transition to AWS using some of the pillars and perspectives defined here in the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. So, onto the exam advice. The first is to make sure that you study smart. So this will mean things like looking at the cloud adoption framework and ensuring that you understand exactly what that constitutes and how that applies to real life business scenarios. It also means understanding at a high level how key AWS services like EC2 or S3 or even RDS, how they work, what they're a high level of the use cases involved in them and the workloads that they're applicable for. The next step would be to take practice exams. So this is understanding you can manage your time effectively, understand how the questions are structured within a real life exam scenario. The third is to stay consistent. And this is perhaps the most difficult part of preparing for an exam, is ensuring that you're spending, let's say, a minimum of 30 minutes every day preparing ahead of the exam. So consistency breeds results. So ensure that you're staying consistent in all of your exam preparations, and you should fare well when the time comes. So finally, we have an example question from our readings and understanding of the AWS CLF exam paper. So for this example question, the question states, which AWS service provides object storage with high durability? And I'll give you some time to think about what the answer would be. Okay, so the answer is B, Amazon S3. The key word here is object storage. And with object storage, we always associate that with the Amazon S3 bucket storage system. So it wouldn't be EBS because that's for block storage. It wouldn't be RDS because that's the relational database service. And it also wouldn't be EC2 because that is a compute service. So thank you for joining. And that wraps up our comprehensive guide to passing the AWS CLF-C02. Make sure that you review the AWS documentation and frequently asked questions, and take AWS practice exams to boost your confidence within the real exam type scenarios. And then also join AWS communities for additional support. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and drop your questions in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we wish you all the best on your AWS journey.